welcome to a very special panel conversation hosted by the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival and Project Tomorrow of Montana. My name is Rachel Gregg. I am the director of the Big Sky Film Institute, and I am joined today by some incredible humans and wonderful people who are involved with a special film that came to the festival this year called The Bears on Pine Ridge, as well as folks who are working in suicide prevention and advocacy for communities around Montana. I'd like to introduce to you our panelists for today, starting with Rosie Ayers from Project Tomorrow, Montana. Hi, Rosie.
Hi, nice to be here. Thank you, Rachel, and thank you, Sonny, for your film.
Very well.
Project Tomorrow, yep, thank you.
Go ahead, Rosie. Talk a little bit about Project Tomorrow, if you would.
Fabulous. Well, we are honored to be working with you guys and to be sponsoring this film this year for the Big Sky Documentary Film Festival. Bears on Pine Ridge was a phenomenal piece and a gorgeous piece of arts advocacy that we desperately need. Project Tomorrow Montana aims to reduce our state suicide rate through education, awareness, training, intervention, prevention, and of course, recovery. Project Tomorrow Montana is a suicide prevention initiative that started through United Way of Missoula County, and we get to work with a lot of amazing organizations, including All Nations, which is one of our favorite organizations to work with. I get to hang out with Dr. Ann Douglas all the time, so lucky me. Suicide rates in Montana are too high. In fact, we're almost twice the national average, and every death by suicide affects us all. And we all know, of course, that feeling depressed or having thoughts of suicide can happen to anyone at any time when times are tough. And we can feel dark and hopeless today, but that doesn't mean that tomorrow isn't going to be better or doesn't have a bigger possibility available. Because when we reach out for help, we find we are not alone. So if you experience any of those lows or they feel unbearable, we want you to know that reaching out to talk to someone about it really does work. And if you know someone in deep distress, tell them you care, ask them how you can help, because through education, awareness, and action, you and all of us here at Project Tomorrow can help save a life, even if it's just your own. And that's what we're doing here today. Thank you for having us with you.
Thanks, Rosie. It's so wonderful to finally meet you. And since you brought her up, Dr. Ann Douglas with the All Nations Health Center in Missoula. Hello, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yeah, no problem. Thanks for having me. And again, Sonny, thanks for the film. I watched it a few days ago and just absolutely loved it. My name is Ann Douglas. I'm a psychologist and director of behavioral health and Native Connections at All Nations Health Center, which is an urban Indian health center in Missoula, Montana. We work with youth, Native youth in an urban setting for prevention efforts. We also do a lot of individual therapy and we have medical services too, but I'm here to talk about the prevention stuff we're doing. So thanks for having me.
Thanks, Ann. It's great to meet you too. And Terrance, hello. I'm so excited to meet you and thanks for making time for us. Will you introduce yourself and talk a little about your work?
Yes, and so grateful just to be a part of this amazing group and to be able to have this experience. So a lot of emotion. So again, my name is Terrance Lafromboise. I come from the Blackfeet Reservation and I work under tribal health under a program called Honor Your Life, which is a suicide prevention program. I'm also part of the Montana Youth Suicide Reduce Coalition and the Silent Warriors. So I do a lot of work throughout the state. Oh, and Mental Health America, Montana, which is a tribal crisis counselor position. So a lot of work being done and just so grateful to be a part of this opportunity.
We're so grateful you could be here, Terrance. And we're gonna talk a little bit about the work that Rosie and Ann and Terrance do, but we also have two very special guests here to kick off our talk today. And the first is Sonny Skyhawk, who is a producer on the film The Bears on Pine Ridge that tells a beautiful story of the work being done by Tiny DeCory, who we hope will be joining us here shortly as well. on the Pine Ridge Reservation, where suicide rates are shockingly high and impacting that community, tearing at the fabric every single day. Sonny, I wonder if you would start our chat today by first introducing yourself and also talk about what the Bears on Pine Ridge program is and how you got involved in the film project about the Bears.
Okay, I'll start it. My name again is Sonny Skyhawk. I'm a proud citizen of the Sicangu Lakota Nation of South Dakota. And I have been an actor and a producer for about 40 years here in Hollywood. I live in Pasadena, and I have an organization called American Indians in Film and Television, which is an organization that speaks to the image and those kinds of things in Hollywood when it comes to Native people. And so I've been in the image business, if you will, for a long time. And still, every day when I get up, it's the same thing. I go through the same issues. I go through the same methodologies of trying to educate Hollywood about who we are as Native people. Invisibility, I think, is probably the new racism. And that's the unfortunate part, because again, when we're talking about suicide is, amongst our children is a subject that supposedly is only about Native people, or maybe only about Pine Ridge, and it's not. It's a national issue, and national organizations should be aware that it's going on and doing something about it. So it's a responsibility of all of us as human beings to care and to find solutions for suicide amongst children. What a travesty that is. When you look at the bigger picture of it, what a travesty it is that a young person has to resort to suicide in order to make a statement or to put the pain away that exists with why you're going to commit suicide. So, you know, even if it's an adult thing, adults have to go through the same process, I'm sure, when they contemplate suicide. But for a young child to have to go through that process, it's just unconscionable. And I don't know how we've ever gotten to that point, but here we are. And so the Bears of Pine Ridge is something that has been very special to me, only because, well, because of many things. First of all, because it's children. And I do have a heart, and I am involved in Native issues. But I've used whatever platform I have as an actor for 40 years to lend that platform to this issue so that we can inform people and educate people about what it is that we're dealing with. So, you know, I'm just kind of on the sidelines, cheering everybody else on. And I draw, like I said earlier, inspiration from all of you, because it's a very difficult subject. But at the same time, if we do not spread the word, if we do not charge ourselves with being informed, like Ann Douglas dealing with young children, I mean, why would you not care about this issue? So I'm just lending my platform, if you will, to the subject of getting people involved. And by people, I mean Native tribes, gaming tribes, tribes of all. I mean, we've got 574 tribes nationally. Each one of them should be involved, as far as I'm concerned. So that's what I bring to the table, and my applause and I guess inspiration again by people like Tiny DeCory and Eileen Janis that, you know, have to go through this or have to face this issue on a daily 24-hour basis. That in and of itself is way above and beyond the call of duty as a human person. Tiny DeCory shouldn't have to do this. She shouldn't have to have and face this issue on a 24-hour basis. So again, you know, thank you for having me and allowing me to be a part of it and to lend my voice to this issue. But it is an issue, again, about recognition, and it is an issue about image. 78%, according to Illuminative, a Native organization of the American public, is totally unaware of what goes on reservations. And that's been something that they've done for years. They don't want to know what's going on reservations because it's a issue they don't want to face. They don't want to know that we still exist amongst all odds on reservations, and that the Native people in America are still here and well, with the exception of children suicide. So thank you to everybody, and I'll shut up and listen.
Sorry, I'm muted. Thank you, Sonny, for your advocacy work and using your credentials to elevate these communities. And I think that you're absolutely right talking about that issue of invisibility. If folks didn't know before, we learned in the film, of course, that the reason reservations were created on the first place was to hide these communities and put them at a disadvantage. And so we're seeing the consequences of such actions in issues like this. And I want to welcome Tiny DeCory to our conversation. Hi, Tiny. Thank you for stepping away from the tournament. Congratulations to your family. And I wonder if you would talk to us a little bit, Tiny, about the Bears program and what inspired you to start it and help these kids on the Pine Ridge Reservation to find some pride and a form of expression to work through what is a very hard existence when they're seeing their friends and family pass away.
Okay, good morning or good afternoon. We started the Bear program in 2000, and I have a couple of bears with me, girls. Lean forward.
Hi.
Hello.
This is Rosie. This is Alicia.
Hey, Rosie and Alicia. Oh my gosh.
Yep. And they're here with me today. They're just as excited to be here. I told them we would be coming on, and if anybody had any questions. These two are in the Bear program, but they are also survivors of suicide, survivors of even thinking about it.
Yeah.
And and they come, they at one point, they were broken, and they still are, but guess what, they're getting their wings back, and they're starting to fly. We started the Bear program back in 2000, and we did it because we had a lot of our high school seniors that were graduating on the reservation, but they were only reading on the 4th grade level. And some of them were beginning to just learn how to read. And so the dropout rate was high, but it's still high, but it was really high. And when we looked for these kids and asked them, why did you drop out of school? And we found a lot of the kids, and they said, because I don't know how to read. I can't keep up with the reading. And then we found kids that were already babies who had babies when they were 14 and 15. We found some of the kids that had dropped out in juvenile detention centers. We found some of the kids homeless, living on the streets, living in cars. And we found kids that were in the cemetery. So we started Be Excited About Reading, the Bear program. Mato, in our language, Mato brings good medicine. So that's how we started the Bear program. We continued to grow, and we continued to grow stronger. And then in 2004 and 5, we took a hit with, just suicide after suicide of our young people. I think we had like 42 in 2 years, and or less than 2 years. And so we added suicide prevention, intervention, and postvention under the umbrella of the Bear program, because Eileen might have jump in anytime, Eileen. any because there's so much under the bear program that we do. You know, we mentor kids, we tutor kids, we visit with kids constantly. We're 24/7. Eileen may have mentioned we're not out there from 8 to 4:30, and we don't punch a clock and say, okay, it's time to go home, kill yourself tomorrow. Or if you feel bad and you want to harm yourself, do it tomorrow when we come back on at 8 o'clock. That's not Tiny and Eileen. We're out there. So that's how we started it. And it just started to grow. And we have costumes. The kids put on costumes and they dance. They bring the costumes to life and they tell stories. The costumes are able to reach the little kids, and the little kids love them and will come out of the stage, the stands, I mean, and just hug them. And we dance and we talk about bullying. We talk about things that even the little kids are experiencing. And it's really sad to say that we can ask the kids, if you know about suicide, raise your hand. And even the kindergarten kids could raise their hand. And they'll tell you, my brother or my uncle or killed themselves, and they know how they killed themselves. And so in costume, we're able to open up the little kids and bring them out to us, and it happens so we can reach out even more to that family. The older kids still love the costumes because they know it's the older kids from the bear program that are in those costumes, and they're entertaining. And then when we change our costumes into serious costumes, where is the love? We always stress, where is the love here? And then they talk about themselves. They have powerful stories to tell. These two young ladies that are with me today, they have powerful stories to tell.
Yeah.
And so they're able to connect with the kids in high school. And guess what? Suicide does not just hit our Native communities. It's all out there. In the bear program, we go into non-Native schools, and there is no color. There is no color. We're all one.
Yeah.
And the kids can feel it. They feel it. So
Yeah.
I mean, so we've been out there.
That's great. Tiny, I love, one of the things I thought of immediately when I saw Noel's film is the more moments of joy you can bring to your communities, that's how you're combating these things. In addition to raising awareness and helping people be seen, I thought it was such an amazing metaphor of the bears being able to be in the costumes and express themselves without any fear, because they're inside of the costume and able to be themselves and find confidence there. And I think that the other things your program does allows them to do that without the costumes on. And I love that you're empowering them in that way.
Yes, we are. I'm gonna let Rosie talk just for a couple of seconds here, and she's gonna tell you what character she plays and how it makes her feel.
Hi, Rosie.
Hi, I play the Exorcist in the Haunt.
No, in the bear.
Oh, in the Bears, I play a bunch of people in the Bears. I play Shaniqua in the Bears, and she's a hippo. And when I'm in her, I feel in myself. She's a baddie. And I don't know, I love bringing that costume to life. It's one of my.
Me too. I love the frog and the hippo the most. That's amazing. So nice to meet you.
I just want to jump in. They do switch costumes a lot. This is Noelle talking. They do switch costumes a lot. When I was filming, Tyra was taking the hippo, and I think Tyra is a mouse now, isn't she, Tiny?
I believe so.
Yeah.
That voice you're hearing is Noelle Bass, who is the filmmaker of The Bears on Pine Ridge. Hi, Noelle.
Right.
Is Eileen still on?
Yeah, she is, and I wanted to kind of. I think she was busy with something, but she's here now. I was just texting her. But yeah, Eileen, you there? There she is.
Hi, Eileen.
Hi. Yeah, I'm here.
So Eileen is well, she needs no introduction on the reservation, and one of the things with the film was we only had 40 minutes to pile a bunch in there. And truthfully, Eileen is an incredible hero on so many levels. And what's unique about Eileen's story, that I can't wait to tell in the future when we can finally put together a feature is that
Yeah.
her family is, and so is Tiny's, really spiritually strong. And one of the unique things that they do besides the Bear Project is they bring the Lakota spiritual way of life and the sweat lodge and you know, a lot of the practices for healing, which is very unique, you know, because you know, this is specifically something that they're doing that they know works
Yeah.
within the community.
Yeah.
So that's a part I wish I could put in the film, and obviously a lot more of Eileen. Eileen and Tiny are like I think they have an article about you guys, right? It's like what is it? The duo something duo, the power duo from Pine Ridge, or
Dynamic.
the dynamic duo. And both are just really magnets to the youth. And if anything, I failed on many levels with this documentary. It was my first one. But mostly with really kind of being able to know how to show both in a short film. And so unfortunately we had to cut, you know, a lot of this. There's so much that we had to take out, but
Yeah.
Eileen is a very special person to me. I drew a lot of inspiration, and she's a lot of inspiration to a lot of kids. And Eileen, I'm sorry, I'm nervous, so I'm talking too much.
Yeah, let Eileen talk.
Sorry.
Eileen, will you tell us a little bit about the, you know, some of the specific to Pine Ridge programs that you're doing for healing and for community engagement outside of the Bears? And then I would love to hear Anne and Terrance talk about that a little bit too. I see you both nodding as Noel brings up this idea of, you know, there's things that are going to be more nurturing for certain communities that you're working with than others. And it's really important to have some of those traditions involved. So maybe Eileen, talk about some of your work a little bit, and then we'll talk with Anne and Terrance.
Well, what I see, what I seen with the youth and the parents, the families on there, is that when the historical trauma people talk about is that they took everything away. They took the kids away from the parents. They took our way of life. They took the way we prayed, our spirituality. It's not religion, it's a way of life. And they took that from us they changed everything about us. So I always say, how would you like your child ripped from your arms and put in a boarding school somewhere? And how would you like to not know because you didn't understand their language when they did it? And that affected us clear till this day. So when they did that, the form of parenting the Lakota had was calm, you know, and there's something good that comes from it. And the strength that spirituality gives you in everyday life of coping. And now, so we had the Sweetgrass Project that taught prevention, what to watch for, what to do. And that was with the youth, and who to call and how to get help. And then I moved to another program under SAMHSA that was Tawachia Hokila, which meant healing the whole self. So healing the whole self was the drugs, the alcohol, the parents. We did parenting classes. There's a lot of grief out there. We have so much death that it's hard to grieve because you have one right after another. And our people don't grieve properly like they used to. And we lost a lot of our ways of doing the ceremonies after to send them on, and those things really help mentally to keep you going. But now we have youth that don't know anything. So I always say, do you know how to pray? Do you believe in a higher power? And it's not religion of heaven and hell. It's your own heart and your own spirit getting stronger.
Yeah.
So with our programs, we sit and visit with them. We try to we ask them open-ended questions so they can open it, because in a lot of places in a lot of cities, you have homeless shelters, you have soup kitchens, you have thrift stores. We don't have that on Pine Ridge.
Mm.
We don't have the transportation for if there was something going on and activities for kids that they all get to go or their parents get to take them or participate. We don't have the transportation, and it's we're so spread apart that we have to when me and Tiny go find somebody, it's through sometimes through creeks, through bad roads, and we got a 4-wheel drive now, but before we just had Tiny's little red Impala when we'd go together, and she drove it like a 4-wheel drive. But yeah, we get there and we just sit there and we show them the care. We give them hugs. We tell them, we went through a lot too. I was like I always tell, I was very lucky that I had both the mom and dad. I had a lot of older brothers and sisters that gave me all the confidence that I needed. We weren't rich, but we were a sober, drug-free family. And a lot of these youth don't have that. And I learned a lot from the youth.
Mm.
And they're my best teachers on the lifestyle of how they have to live.
Yeah.
Being hungry, being cold, being scared. And they are my best teachers. And but we do everything and anything just to make up for not having so many things, to take them to a hot supper or to do whatever. We try everything and anything just to give them hope.
Yeah. Thank you to both of you for your incredibly huge hearts. Letting people know that they are loved and that they matter is the core of that work. And I want to, I'm seeing Terrance nodding a lot. Terrance, can you talk a little bit about your work in Montana, kind of as it relates to Pine Ridge a little bit, but it's about community building and connecting people when a lot of the system is set up to separate people. Tell us about your work and some of the programs in Blackfeet country.
Yes, first I want to say thank you, Eileen and Tiny and the rest of the Bears and all the people that have been moving toward wellness and reservations. You guys are some of the staples of what is happening across Indian country. Thank you. After this show came out, the work I've been doing in community is very similar to trying to find ways to stop suicide and looking at different ways and tactics and looking at healing different parts of the community. After this documentary came out, one of our local radio stations, TV stations, just did an interview with me, got my name somehow, and was asking the same thing, what's going on in Blackfeet country. And I mentioned how this video like this shares insight to a lot of what is happening all across the United States, how this video shares insight on what we can do to help combat some of the hopelessness that is occurring on Indian reservations. And after that video, and this is how metaphysical works, this is how indigenous ideology works. I got a call from the Thunderhawk community development down there in Pine Ridge, and a young gentleman that knew me saw my interview and started asking me questions, and they're looking to build youth engagement practices, I believe, in the Thunder Valley, which I believe is in Porcupine. I'm not too sure. In that process, though, I believe things don't happen just to happen. There is no coincidence. There's things that occur in our lives that are meant to happen. So these things that are occurring right now, they're slowly going towards kind of a projected path of what are we doing in our Indigenous communities and how can we feed off of what Pine Ridge is doing and has been doing? Because I think once places like Pine Ridge goes, other places tend to follow. Pine Ridge is a very unique perspective in Indigenous ideology across the United States. Sioux culture the Dakota, Nakota, Lakota play a huge part. And I think the ideology of what we view as Indian in America. And when you have them starting to perpetuate wellness and hope, you could feel it just radiate across the United States in something like this. And I believe when I gave my interview, that's why I was asked to be on here, because the connections being made at Pine Ridge is something that we're trying to do here on the Blackfeet Reservation. What has happened 10 years ago is starting to really pick up here, because things are different in different areas, like we all talked about. And we're starting to see rises in suicide, ideations going down to ages 7, 8, and 9, attempts happening at 7, 8, and 9, completions happening at 10, 11, and 12. And it's overwhelming. And there's only a group of us that are really continuing to push forward an effort. And it's creating a paradigm, but shows like this, documentaries like this, could share insight for us as we continue to combat this silent epidemic. And I think that's one thing that I want to talk about. What is happening in Indian country is what is happening all across the United States, is a system superimposed on us long time ago, and how that system is now being perpetuated in some of the symptoms we're seeing today, like the domestic violence, like the unhealthy relationships, like the rise in unhealthy behaviors, the social ills that are naturally on reservations. And someone mentioned before the systemic historical policy that has occurred to our Indian people, such as our Lakota people and our Piikani people. These hold true in what we're seeing today. And some of the things we're combating is what Eileen mentioned, that hopelessness. Hopelessness is written into our embedded into our DNA through that historical trauma. But what is happening is when you get people like Tiny and Eileen that just say enough's enough, you start to see how that embeddedness starts to change, just like DNA can, just like an organism can. Things manifest and change over time. It's people that put in the good work that you start to see it happen at a level that is really undescribable. And you could see that occurring, whether that they're at 100% zero suicide. The idea is they're trying, they're putting in an effort. And I believe that's happening here on the Blackfeet Reservation. We're waking up, we're being aware, we're educating ourselves, because that's one key I believe Tiny and Eileen mentioned, was people just need to be aware. Sometimes we're just surviving. We're just surviving to get by. And why should we care about progress when we're just looking to survive? So these ladies found an algorithm, so to speak, of how do we start to just not survive and look to be hopeful. And that's what I got from this film. And that's what I want to bring back to my community, is hopeful. So thank you guys so much. I really appreciate it.
Can I say something?
Yeah.
Please do.
I mean, you're right on point. Everything you said is on point. What's happening in your community is happening in ours, you know? And I want to say that, you know, the kids, we tell the kids and the community, you are not alone. But when suicide occurs, that's all they feel is alone. Where was everybody when, you know, when this was happening? And then they put the blame. When we get a suicide, sometimes Eileen and I get the blame. We're responsible because we were out attending to other kids and somebody else slipped through and killed themselves. And it was a kid who we knew nothing about, because he wasn't on, he was a quiet kid, but we get it, we get the blame. So now we say we are not alone. We are not alone. And you know, we have other small organizations, you know, that are coming out helping. Our crisis response teams, they change all the time, because not everybody can do the job that needs to be done. Not everybody wants to go out there in the middle of the night and find a kid dead. Nobody wants to do that. But I always tell Eileen, we were chosen. The Creator has chosen us, and the Creator has given us the health and the strength that we need, because we have got to pull these communities together. We go out and ask people to join us, come and be with us, and they tell us, I can't do that. But we don't stop asking. We ask all the time. We go back, we that circle, that whole choka of life starts, and we say there's an end. It's not, it keeps going. We go back into that circle of people and ask them, how can we help you? Because when a child is lost and a child is buried, everybody seems they want to come out and they want to do something. And we will do this. And so we set up these trainings, you know, the curriculums that we use, we adapted them to the Lakota, our curriculum. And so we set up these trainings and we invite them, but it seems like they forget after they bury somebody. Oh, I'm too busy to go get trained in suicide prevention or signs of suicide. But we don't stop. We'll go to a training if there's one person sitting there. We'll go to a training if there's 100 people sitting there, because that is what we have to do. We have to keep pushing forward, and we all have to get on the same continuity. We got to be moving in the same direction. And our kids, Eileen and I always talk about transparency. We have to show what we do, and we do that a lot. We go on Facebook and we have our chat lines, and we Eileen probably sends out 100 text messages a night, and so do I, to all of the kids. And in Montana, we've been in Montana, Rocky Boy, we've been up in that area. The Bears have left good memories there, and we worked hard with those schools during the time we were there. But we sent out messages to the kids every night, and the message could be stupid, it could be funny, it could be in terms of, hey, you got a toothpick I could borrow? Oh. And then the kids respond, yeah, well, I'll take a picture of it and send it to me. And we laugh. Why are we doing that? Why is Eileen and I doing that? Because we know that the kids are alive and they're responding back to us and they're talking to us. So, I mean, there's so many things out there that still needs to be done. And I commend you in Montana. I commend you in California, who's ever on. And, you know, keep trying. We got to work together.
Yeah, absolutely. Tiny, I'm glad that you mentioned some of the training programs. I wonder, Anne, if you would talk a little bit about the work of All Nations. And you guys used to be Montana or Missoula Urban Indian Health Center. You're doing your work farther from reservations, farther from those communities, but trying to connect people like Tiny is saying, and make sure we're all taking those tiny steps together. Tell us a little bit about your work in that space.
Yeah, I just want to say thank you to Tiny, Eileen, and Terrance for all the work you guys do on the reservations. We really appreciate it because our Native youth go back and forth to the reservations all the time. So we're constantly working with children and families that are going back and forth. And what we've seen and what we're kind of working towards is that community effort. I think prevention efforts have done an amazing job of telling youth that you're not alone and you need to reach out to supporting, caring adults. And then when they do reach out, some adults get scared and they don't know what to do. And we've seen that. And so we're trying to really incorporate more of the community aspect and include adults. Like what do you do if a youth does come to you and say that they're having thoughts of suicide? It can be really scary to hear that from somebody you love and care for. And how do you help them? And how do you be more like Tiny and Eileen and Terrance, and to really just sit with them through those emotions and help them work through it instead of, you know, pushing it aside or putting it on somebody else, but really owning that for the youth in your life and helping them to work through it. And I really appreciate, I keep hearing the word hope through this whole conversation, which I think is the word in suicide prevention is hope. We need to give our youth hope. Youth are the future. And that's how our communities are going to keep going. And so I think these efforts are super important in involving the community instead of just individualistic orientation is how we're going to make that happen.
Yeah, well said, Anne. It's I'm hoping that this, and I think Noelle and everyone is helping, that this film will be kind of that beacon of hope and keep that conversation going, create that momentum. And Rosie, I wanted to be sure and circle back to you, because Project Tomorrow Montana kind of helps connect the dots between a lot of different efforts. Will you talk a little bit about that? Because you know, there's a lot of people who want to help that maybe aren't tapped in with these communities directly. Get into that a little bit and your work in that space.
Thank you, Rachel. And again, thank you to all of you serving in direct service, especially on our reservations. And in Montana, being a rural state, even in our urban areas, we really understand the challenges that we have being a wide open state with lots of space in between us and a huge stretch on our resources, that even in our urban areas, we have to really diversify to figure out how to get resources and how to connect to different professionals. The things that we have available in the state of Montana are different than what is available in California or in Texas or in New York. And watching the Bears on Pine Ridge, we can really relate to what it's like to live in those small communities that South Dakota has. I got to tour the state a couple of years ago talking about suicide prevention. I got to meet Terrance up in Browning and had some really brilliant and beautiful conversations there, as well as my favorite conversations happened on the Little Shell Tribe and the Crow Reservation, and the hearts of our whole state live there and are beating and aching and bleeding for more help and more resources. So as an initiative in Western Montana, where we are just in a small area, but what we're trying to do is really make sure that our entire state is connected so that the resources that we do have are able to go out to those who need them the most. And some of the easiest ways that you can connect to that is just by going to our website, projecttomorrowmontana.org, and finding out who are your suicide prevention specialists in your area and what do they need. Because suicide prevention doesn't just look like talking about mental health, although that's a huge one, right? It also looks like affordable housing. It looks like making sure that our food needs are met, that our education systems are held together and supported, that our families are given ideas and resources to help create resiliency and protective factors, that our families and their cultures are protected and fought for, especially with those who have privilege, that they need to stand up and be able to find a way to give back for what has happened in our state and what has happened to our Indigenous population. And we have grown up in this historical trauma, in the generational trauma around us, and to recognize that is a big step into starting to heal it. So start wherever you are. And I would love to hear, it was phenomenal to watch the film. I love what you guys have provided for us in this beautiful piece and of arts activism. And I would love to even hear from the rest of our panelists a little bit about some of those. We know about the macro actions, the giant actions that it feels like are out there. It's such a weighty and huge issue. And those of us who work in suicide, we get exhausted. We do it 24 hours a day. Our job doesn't ever stop at 5 p.m. And it plagues our waking moments and our sleeping moments. And I was lucky enough my kids were all in the room watching this film with me. And when I told them I was going to get to meet Tiny on Zoom, they got really excited. So they loved it too. But I would love to hear from the panelists a little bit about what are some of those little micro actions, those little individual personal actions that help build resiliency around you and make you guys the amazing role models that you are? What can you encourage one of my 13-year-olds to do, or one of your students, or one of your close friends who's not sure if they have a voice big enough for this? What would you encourage them to do in a small way? And thank you.
I'm going to call on Terrance first.
I was just kind of waiting for that. Thank you so much. I mean, thank you for all that is being done, that fills in the cracks that you do. And I think when I think of resiliency, I think what is happening at a level where we need to feel resilient. Why are we feeling so empowered to move forward and to have these things? Well, we've all been talking about it again, the generational traumas, the legacies that we live in, and it's those understandings. And when we use education, like whether it's community events, and I think this holds true in a lot of Native communities where they're more closer knit in terms of functions. So if a function is happening, the majority of the community knows about it and is able to attend. So you can reach a lot of people at these smaller functions. But how does that look like during COVID, and what has it changed? Well, it's changed a lot of the dynamics. It's changed how we actually do some of the normal things, or what we believed was normal. And so it's really starting to bridge those changes that we're seeing, but still getting back into somewhat of a normalcy is, again, finding these events that are still occurring, like the vaccination sites or the testing sites, and getting to the community in ways where we're educating them, whether it's pamphlets, whether it's one-on-one conversations or one-on-group conversations. And it isn't what you might think it looks like. Is really just a conversation that is happening from community member to community member. What you're going to get is the agents of change. Like what we're doing is they're going to speak on different processes on how to maybe either handle a situation, how do we go into one. So almost like SOS or QPR, what are the questions we're asking? How are we guiding them and referring them in this process? Something I'm learning on a level where it just comes natural. So we look for those things. We have to look for the things that are already working. And in a Native community, there isn't a lot that is working. That's one of our big things, is lack of resources and some of the systems of care that aren't actually in place. But here we are, working in between those lines the best we can. So a lot of it is just hitting those opportune moments in communities. Like this week, our Lady Indians made it to divisionals, and prior to that, a group of prevention programs got to go speak to the high school ladies, give them praise and thank them. Going back to some of our older cultural concepts is praising. So finding opportunity to praise these kids and acknowledge them, almost like what we used to do prior to colonization when we would build leaders, was empathy and love and praise. And a lot of that came within transfer or ceremony. So reincorporating ceremony back into these little community engagements that are occurring, whether they occur naturally or whether they occur in times of crisis, you still got to be able to be in a position to serve and communicate, and to be a staple, to be and that's one thing that I'm struggling with, because on the backside of this is who helps the helpers, is who's helping us complete these hard tasks. But to really focus on the question, it's finding those opportune moments within a community and capitalizing on them.
It's beautiful to hear that fills your cup as you do this work, that perpetuates you to remain strong and keep doing it. And Tiny, tell us a little bit about what fills your cup while you do this work. Make sure you unmute yourself.
What I say, what fills our cup, Tiny and Eileen, because we share everything, And what's important is that, and I've said this before, we're out there. So we always tell our young people, the sun is going to shine for you tomorrow, no matter what. And the rain and the clouds, they still bring good luck to you and power and strength. But, we live in a very pulverized area. We have a Pizza Hut, we got Out of Bounds, we have Taco John's, and we have young people who are trying to work, but they're competing with grandmothers and grandpas who are trying to work to still provide for their grandchildren. So what fills my cup is the fact that these kids are reaching out. They're reaching out every day. And what we're doing at the Bear program is, and Terrance mentioned COVID. Yes, that has put a strain on a lot of things that we are able to do. Even with the Bears, we even shut down our performances until we can get through this. But we bring in different bears to make snack bags. And they make those snack bags and food bags for the children, the youth, and the communities, not just Pine Ridge, because we have 54 communities on the reservation, and we try to get a little into every community, or somebody will come in from a community and take back food bags, snack bags. So when those kids come in and they make the snack bags, they're wearing their gloves and their masks, and they really believe that they're doing something. And guess what? They really are. They are doing something. So when we can instill in that youth every day to look in the mirror and tell yourself, you're beautiful. You are beautiful. And one important thing that Eileen and I do early in the morning, we do our intake. We talk about how many kids she's had the night before, and I talk about how many I've had. And we go back and look and see how many times we've talked with them. Are they our clients? Did we send them to facilities of inpatient? We know about the kids. We know about their kids and their families. So when we see them, Eileen starts joking. She teases them and calls them Bernard face, and Bernice, and they all laugh and they joke because they love that. And then she tells them about their family. I knew your grandpa. I knew your grandma. And we start talking and we get them. So it's really important that, we make that connection with our young people and keep the connection. There you go.
Yeah. And what about you? Talk to us about what nurtures you as you do this work so you can come back again every day.
Just working with people like Rosie. She's amazing. I wanted to give her a shout out. She's very inclusive, and I've always felt like I had a voice at the table with Project Tomorrow. And then just working with the youth, like seeing them every day. That's kind of what fuels me and brings me back. I have my own children, and Rosie asked what small thing that somebody can do, and I tell them every day, did you talk to somebody you didn't know, or is there somebody that maybe was all by themselves and you included them? And working with youth, I encourage that, and that's what I love about the Bears, is that there's youth including other youth. Like, that's amazing. Like, let's increase that connection and feeling of belonging, and we can stop suicides. We can make everybody feel like they have a place and they are part of our community. And so that's one small thing I tell people, is just include kids that maybe wouldn't normally come and sit at your table, or if you're shooting basketball, ask them if they want to join you. So just include other people. I think that's a small thing you can do.
That's lovely. All of you, to some extent, have mentioned how everybody has a story to tell. These young people have a story, even if they don't know. And I just really honor all of you for your work in reminding them of that every day. And I just wanted to again thank Sonny for your work in that space, not just to let these communities know they have stories to tell, but tell the rest of the world they need to listen and be involved in that. Will you tell us about other projects you might have coming up? And make sure you unmute yourself, because I think I muted you. Oh, Sonny, make sure you unmute your phone there.
Okay. Is that okay?
Yeah.
is I feel like I'm just one spoke in this big wheel. People like Eileen and Tiny and Terrance and Rosie and Ann. I mean, my contribution is the national spectrum, if you will. I'm charged, and I will include people's platforms like Leonardo DiCaprio, just to mention a name, and I don't mean to drop these names, but Angelina Jolie and Mark Ruffalo and so on. I can inspire these people, hopefully with pieces like this that has been recorded, and they can watch and listen to these people that are on the boots on the ground and listen to the issues and how they're trying to resolve them. But I see my participation in amplifying and letting people know what this issue is about, and the fact that it's not just a Native issue, it's everyone's issue. The world, all humanity's issue. But we're dealing with it as best we can on reservations and in the cities that we live in. So I'm basically part of that amplification. I want to let people know and understand hope is one thing, and we all have hope. But hopefully through that, we can create a better understanding of the issue. If people don't understand this, we have a hard road to hoe. I always talk about major people in the media that come to Pine Ridge and they do what they call poverty porn. And they show the poverty, they show the drunkenness, and they show all of these things, but very rarely will they actually show where it originated and why it's there. It's the same thing with suicide with children. We tend to generally talk about children or whatever, but we very rarely will actually have the child say something about the issue and why and how they feel and how it came about. So again, I see my part in this wheel as just one small part, and that's trying to amplify the issue to the masses, to the national audience, so that they do understand somewhere what this issue is all about and why it's affecting our people. And I really just think it's a matter of understanding, not about caring, because we all care as human beings, but it's amplifying the issue and hopefully making people understand what we're going through. And
Yeah,
that's
well,
what I intend to do.
yeah, wonderful. Thank you for your work there. We just have a few minutes left. So I wanted to make sure and really thank Rosie for your partnership to make this possible and bring the film to Big Sky, where a lot of people have seen the story of the bears on Pine Ridge. Eileen and Tiny, you can tell the bears that they're celebrities in the Big Sky circle now. And their story will continue on. This is just the first place the film has played. So it'll go out into the world some more. But Rosie, I want to make sure if there's anything else you wanted to ask the panelists today before we wrap up, the floor is yours.
Excellent, thank you. You know, I am so very thankful for being allowed to participate at all in this, and sponsoring this has just been a joy for all of United Way of Missoula County. And I would love if you guys just talked about quick one resource to remind people out there of something that they can do if they are feeling down or if they have a friend who's in emotional distress. One place that they can connect to. I mean, obviously we've got our suicide prevention lifeline right behind me that's always available, but there are so many resources out there. So if everybody could just name one, even if it's as simple as someone near you.
Anne, do you want to chime in first?
Yeah, well, All Nations Health Center in Missoula is a great resource to go to for people who are having thoughts. So you can always reach out to us. We're online. Yeah, so that's my one resource. Thanks.
Great. We'll put the websites at the end of our video talk today. So, and Terrance.
Yes, as I was thinking of all the great resources. I think locally, we want to make sure to reach out to our local hospitals, our local mental health clinics, look to the resources that work and that have been working, continue to ask the questions and to continue to seek communication, continue to communicate to the ones that you love about what is happening. And I just have a Montana crisis number here, a part of the Montana crisis recovery line. And it's just, if you're feeling any sort of way about what has been happening, you can dial 1-877-503-0833. And that is a specific Montana crisis line.
Thank you. That's awesome. I'll make sure and put the number at the end of the video too. And then Eileen and Tiny, if you're still out there, tell us about the resources where you are outside of the Bears, or anything you would just give for advice of folks who are struggling with suicide ideation.
Hello. I always tell them to go to someone they trust. So maybe that's a coach, maybe that's somebody they're working with, but we always have our numbers out there. We're on Facebook and everything, and they want to talk. And I ask them to give their parents a chance, or their guardian, to be calm and be truthful, because that will help open up, and we hope that the parent will be appreciative of that and not be mad. But if you come in a calm way, you talk the truth, I'm tired of this happening and I want something different, and maybe the parent would listen. But if you got a coach, another coworker, or a student, another kid that's by you, then that's who I always tell them, because they have to trust. They have lost a lot of trust in adults, because our hospital is not the best to refer them to. Thank you.
Rachel, I wanted to impress upon you the importance of this hub that I see here, these people that I see here talking about it, and how important it is to have recorded this, because this is how, instead of constantly being on the spot, this is how we can explain this issue. And thank you for recording it, because it goes a long ways, in trying to put that message out there of what it is we're trying to go through.
Yeah, absolutely. It's my great honor to host this panel with Rosie and Project Tomorrow. Big Sky is so happy to have brought Noelle's film into the world. Noelle, if you're out there behind the scenes here, thank you for your courage to share it with us. And since we're at the end here, I just want everyone to smile and take deep breaths. And I send you courage and love to continue doing your work, including the filmmakers. Thank you to the Bears who are in the car with us today. I'm so honored to meet all of you, and I hope we can connect out there in the real world one day very soon. So thanks again. And all of you who are watching, stay tuned for a moment. We'll put some links up on the screen at the end of our video. Please feel free to share this far and wide so folks can meet these wonderful advocates and learn more about how you can get involved in suicide prevention. Thank you all.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay, that's the end. Okay. I'll cut off this little this little end part. We'll tag it, and that was wonderful. Nice long chat.
Yeah, that was awesome. That was fun. I checked out, and then because I wanted to listen to it live, but it's not, the link's not up yet. So I popped back in. I was like, I gotta hear this. This is really a treat for me. And Terrance, I want to thank you and Anne and Rosie and for taking your time. And it really is about awareness. Like, it comes down to getting the funding and the awareness and the community that's going to be able to come together to do it.
Yeah, for sure.
So but also Rachel, I wanted to say thank you specifically, and because you were very busy and you made this happen, and then also to Big Sky, because suicide is it's a topic that a lot of people don't know how to discuss yet. And I think everybody can agree about that. And so your festival being supported from the very, very beginning was very encouraging. And I can't say enough about that, because, I think festivals don't want any topics that are taboo or controversial or could be misunderstood. And you saw that this was a discussion piece and something that was a little bit more than that. I hope so.
Yeah. When Noelle and I first talked about doing this, it was I just think the film does such a good job of enabling people to have a place to enter a conversation. You can talk about the bears and then be able to approach that hard conversation of suicide. And maybe it will encourage people who've had ideations to make that connection or try to find a way to express themselves. But also, I was just, this is one of those films that made me especially sad that we're not in the real world, because I know that people would gather around and just and lift up the people who are doing the hard work, and hopefully also walk away with some tools to know what to do and to be braver, to talk to someone that they're worried about, or if it's just an individual struggling on their own, to be empowered, find the courage to reach out. It's the festival can do that in some ways. And so anyway, this was my small attempt to do that. And Noelle, this is rather than being like in the virtual cinema, we're going to put this on the website and in the YouTube channel.
Oh yeah.
So
totally.
so it doesn't disappear.
I was just saying
it's
I
going to
didn't want to
take
miss
me,
it. So yeah.
Yeah, it's going to take me a few hours to get this all edited together and put on, but I'll send everybody the link just as soon as it's ready.
Thank you very much. And thank you, Terrance, for using your knowledge and ability to speak to this subject very eloquently. Part of this whole issue is that I happen to be an elder. So elders are the ones that hopefully gather these people to be able to talk about these issues. And Terrance, you do a fantastic job in addressing it. And I hope you help us even further in helping Anne and Tiny and Eileen be able to amplify and to be able to speak about this subject, because very few people really want to talk about it. It's something that they feel not compelled to talk about because it's only supposedly a Native issue, but it's not. It's all of our issues, and we need to be cognizant and aware of that.
Well, I thank you for this opportunity, Noelle, for reaching out, and Sonny, and being able to meet you, Rachel, and Rosie. And I have the privilege already to know Anne, both personally and professionally. So I can't even explain how I was just so excited for Saturday to come and to be a part of this, because you hit it on the head, Sonny. My heart is really indebted to that shift to start to bring positive change. And it's hard to combat it sometimes, but at the same time, we need people like us that are doing the work and that are able to speak it in a way where people listen. Because it is, when I hear suicide, my body wants to shut down, but because of who I am, it gets reignited somewhere in here. And that for me is my fulfillment when I see one person I could make a difference in. And I think we all want that bigger picture of no suicides. So it's a reality of understanding both concepts. And Sonny, thank you. And Noelle, thank you for bringing this to light. Rachel, Rosie, and just to be a part of this, thank you. And Anne, you actually been on our radar in the community. Every meeting we go to, we need to get a hold of Anne. We need to get a hold of Anne. So you're very much talked about. Maybe your ears itching a little every now and then, but I want to say you are. There's so much I think you already know. And Sonny, thank you for giving me this opportunity, and Noelle as well. I just can't thank you guys enough.
Terrance, you're actually one of the reasons that I have this position now. I was touring the state with Every Brilliant Thing, the theater production, the one man show, and I went up to Browning, and Terrance's talk that night with the community was one of the most eloquent and beautiful things that I've ever experienced, especially across the state. We had just come from the Crow Reservation and we were devastated. And we had just been through 2 suicides over there, and to go up to Browning where it was just as much of a problem, but people were talking about it. People were talking about it with eloquence and beauty and solution. And I came back from being an actor on the road, doing a play about suicide and trying to, raise prevention that way, to coming home and saying, I have to do this for a job. I need to be doing more. And that, really stuck with me. And hey, the great news is he Sonny mentioned Leonardo DiCaprio, one of your tribal members, Lily Gladstone's about to act with him.
Exactly.
And
exactly.
How beautiful and great
How
is that?
How amazing.
Yeah.
And like I was mentioning earlier, things I just know things don't happen for a reason. That just makes me feel so, my heart happy, because I remember your face. I'm like, oh, and
a little older.
to hear that makes me feel so good, because I think our work, we forget what we do, because we're so caught up in what we need to do or what's not happening. It's good to be reminded, and you're making me feel really good. So I appreciate it. You don't know how much we don't get to hear the impact we make.
Thank you all very much.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this was so lovely.
Yeah, amazing.
Hope it's
Terrance.
filling your cup as we talked about. All right. I'm afraid I have to go and do the next festival thing. We have one more day of this interesting event. It's been so amazing.
Yeah, congrats.
The finish
Congrats
line.
on everything. Yeah.
Thanks.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's been very exciting, right, Rachel?
Very. Yeah. I feel like, I wondered so many times, is it really worth it to do the virtual thing? And there's no question now. I mean, just thousands of people all over the world have come to watch. So one more day. All right,
Okay,
everybody.
Have a great day.
I'll send you a link
Bye.
soon. Bye.
All right, thank you.
Hope to talk to you soon, Sonny and Noel.
Yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Thanks again.
Thank you, Terrance.
Thanks, Terrance.